Hi there folks, welcome back to the IB9 Fishing channel. I hope you're doing really well. Please do not forget, if you're not a current subscriber, hit that subscribe button right now. That way you'll be kept in touch with all the news, all the reviews, all the fishing and all the other stuff that we get up to in our little corner of YouTube. As ever, if you're a current subscriber, thank you very much for joining us again. We're back on the review train today, as you'd have guessed from the thumbnail and the title. And this is one of those, when Greys remake the Streamflex, you take notice. It's as simple as that. We've actually already reviewed one of the Streamflex rods from the new Wing Streamflex range a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now. So if you haven't already watched that one, then you really ought to. There's a little bit of crossover information. We're going to go through it all again as we usually do. As I say, when Greys make a new Streamflex model, it's a big thing in the fishing industry. This has been a staple rod range for 20 years plus. I was trying to think earlier if this is the fourth or fifth iteration. The original Streamflex, XF2 Streamflex, GR60, GR80 Streamflex. And then what we've got these days is the Greys Wing Streamflex. Brand new, come out in the last 12 months or so. We were really excited to get our hands on a couple of these. As I say, we've already reviewed one of them, but I think this one is going to be one of the two big sellers in the range. We've got on review this time the 9-foot 4-weight Greys Wing Streamflex. Now I know we've said before on other reviews of other stuff, your 9-foot 4-weight in the UK is your sort of do-all river trout rod, I reckon. In America it might be the 9-foot 5-weight, but over here, smaller fish, lighter tippet, smaller venues, 9-foot 4-weight, you can't really go too far wrong. That's what I generally advise most people pick up as their first kind of all-river, mid to large river trout fly rod. It's about smack on. And the Greys Streamflex 9-foot 4-weight is going to be one of those rods that's going to sell. It's going to be popular. So we've done a whole review for you, so here we go. As ever, I'm going to go through, first off, what the rod's got, what you get in the package, and then the second half of the review will be my opinions on it. A little bit of talk about the price and the warranty and stuff like that, and at the end of it, we'll all know a bit more about this, the Greys 9-foot 4-weight Wing Streamflex. First things first, as ever, the tube, nice, rock solid, Cordura tube, very nice, bright red. Sticker on the top to tell you what it is. Nothing particularly fancy, but it's a rod tube. What does it need to be? It's always nice when you get something a bit fancy, but you're not going to get any posh metal stuff or anything on this. Partition rod bag rather than a partition tube. You can see here, without even getting the rod out of the bag here, there's a very strong black and red theme, and that is going to continue through the rod as we take it out. Pull these bits out of the rod tube as it is. That is your Greys Streamflex 9-foot 4-weight, Greys Wing Streamflex 9-foot 4-weight. Even though this is the second review I've done of a Wing Streamflex, that is still taking a little bit of getting used to. Obviously, 4-piece rod, the vast majority of the rods on the market now are 4-piece. It's just convenient for everyone. So no different there. We're going to start down at the front end, down here on the butt section, because that's where the vast majority of the stuff is. Right down at the bottom end. Little bit of branding down on the butt there, just so you know what you've got. No fighting butt or anything, just a little rounded aluminium butt. I presume it's aluminium butt down there. And that leads up to the same reel seat as what we got on the other Streamflex rod that we reviewed. So double locker, up locking. And Greys have done this really interesting thing where they've flattened off the top and bottom of the reel seat, the screw thread reel seat, so that the band that your reel fits into doesn't slip around. So there's no kind of figuring out where to put the foot of your reel. Just slide straight in there and it never moves. A little bit of branding so you know what's the top and what's the bottom. A nice, solid, functional reel seat. Again, the black detailing down there, and then just above that you've got a wood insert there, wood spacer. I can't actually find any information about what the wood is, it's just wood. Up from there, very slim cork handle with some composite at the bottom end here. Just to make sure that there's nothing crumbling off the back end. Absolutely fine with that. It looks nice. I really like how slim it is actually. It's a particularly slim handle and I quite like that on a lighter line rod, so you're not tempted to really hand fist grip it. A little keeper ring just above that. We love a keeper ring here, so thank you very much Greys for making sure there's a keeper ring on there. And then up here you've got your branding. Now this, for someone like me who is used to the sort of more conservative traditional styling of the original Streamflex, the black and red here is a little bit of a kind of wow. You really can't miss it. It sort of doesn't look like a Streamflex or what I think a Streamflex is. Now obviously that's just because I'm old. This is going to be the way things are probably going to look going forwards from Greys, because they're trying to make a dent in the American market. They're owned by a much bigger company called Pure Fishing. Absolutely huge American company. And it looks like they're trying to make a bit of a dent in the American market with Greys, so we're probably going to see slightly more flashy looking stuff going forwards. I will say going up from there, things get a little bit more conservative again with this lovely matte grey finish to the blank, which follows through right the way up all 4 sections. Low flash, not particularly glossy. It's a pretty smart looking thing actually. This is sort of my ideal rod blank finish, I reckon. It's just something a little bit more subtle, nothing too glossy, nothing too flashy. Nice utilitarian sort of look to it. Don't mind that at all. Just going to grab the 3rd section there, and we've got here line alignment dots with the line going right the way up, so it makes it much easier to line your sections up if that's something you struggle with. A fair amount of branding actually on each section. Again, this is something we talked out on one of the other rods that we did, on the other review that we did. Every single section has that branding with the length and line weight in the rod. A little bit unusual, but we'll go with it. On the 9'4" weight here, we've got a single lined stripper guide. I think that's absolutely fine for 9'4" weight. I'm not sure actually if the 5 weight might have 2, it's possible, but for a 4 weight, I don't think you need 2 stripper guides. I think that one is absolutely fine personally. That stripper guide and actually all the other guides on here up until the tip section are whipped on with very, very simple black whippings there. No tips or anything like that. Nothing too flashy, doesn't need to be particularly flashy, but right the way through there, you'll see all of the guides have that same black whipping on them. Up at the tip section here, we've got a sort of hay fork style tip ring and then a metallic red whipping to the tip ring. I've noticed this actually, we've done a couple of reviews where all of a sudden there are different coloured whippings on the tip. I'm not sure if that's just a fashion thing at the moment, whatever it is, it's there. I don't think it's doing any harm. It is what it is. Greys described the action of the 9'4" Wing Streamflex as medium fast, and I've just given it away on kitchen scales at 83 grams, which puts it about right in terms of weight for a rod at this price point. According to the Greys website, the blank is made using their Powerlux graphite material. Now I imagine this is a pretty similar thing to what Hardy use. Hardy and Greys are the same company. Maybe a grade down, maybe a slightly older technology. I guess this is one of the advantages of being a Hardy Greys and being part of that bigger pure fishing brand, is that you've got all these technologies, you know, as Hardy push things at the top end, some of this filters down to the mid-range stuff, and Powerlux I think is one of the same technologies that Hardy currently use or possibly used to use. So that's the spiel off the Greys website. What I want to do now is go through my experience of using the rod in the 4.5 months that I've had it here. I've had a fair amount of time with this. I've been able to get to know it pretty well. Both myself, IB's used it, I've used it for some guiding as well, so it's been used a fair amount. I feel like I know this rod pretty well now. I'm going to come back down to the butt section to just go through all this stuff down there. I know I said this on the previous review of the multi-length rod. I really like that reel seat. I think that's really clever, having that flat section on the top so it can't slide around. I know it's just a small thing, and actually for me not particularly relevant because I never really take my rods apart. But I imagine for someone who's struggling with stuff like that, someone who's not particularly dexterous or just easier to use it, if it doesn't slide around. So very, very small thing, but actually thumbs up. It's a pretty cool design. I like that. The reel seat as a whole actually has been rock solid. As long as you use that double locking nut properly, use one to secure it and then one to tighten down that one. Nothing's ever moved since I've had this. So yeah, absolutely fine. I think that's a really cool piece of design. The wood spacer, they don't say what the wood is, it's just wood. But I will say, having used it a fair amount, there's no marks on it, there's no scuffs or anything. You know, it's clearly pretty durable, nothing's moved. It's a wood spacer, it's doing wood spacer things, and it's doing it pretty well. We'll come up a little bit here, and this is something that actually came up in the review of the previous Greys Wing Streamflex, and actually is more of an issue with this one. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think this is great quality cork for a rod at this price point. We'll talk about price in a bit, but there are very, very obvious areas here where not only was there quite a lot of filler, but some of that filler is starting to come out already. I've said previously, I think this will just be a reflection of how the quality of the cork is going to go. As the number of producers of cork decreases, I think it's going to get harder and harder to get good quality cork. That said, I think I've seen better quality cork on current rods on the market than this, which are cheaper. It's not the end of the world, it's not falling apart. I don't think it's going to fall apart in anyone's hands, but there's just a little bit more sort of fatigue in this than I'd like to see for a rod that's 4 months old. Granted, it's had a lot of use, but there's a little bit more fatigue to this cork than I'd like to see. I thought that was a bit of a standout on this, was that the cork was just a little bit subpar. I think it could be better. That said, I do really like the shape of it, I do really like the feel of it. It fits really comfortably in my hand. As I said earlier, you don't feel like you've got to white knuckle it, it just kind of sits in your hand like a little magic wand. And you can do pretty much whatever you want with it with any grip you want. So actually the shape of the cork, the design of the cork handle, I really, really like that. As I said earlier, the sort of physical looks of the rod, the red and the black, It's not sort of what I think of when I think of a Greys Streamflex, but you know, I'm an old fuddy-duddy now. I'm fully aware that this rod probably isn't being designed for a traditional British river trout fly angler. I know they've got a bigger picture at Greys at the moment, and perhaps this has got a little bit more rod rack appeal than the old olive coloured Streamflex bank. It's making absolutely no difference to the way it fishes at all, and there are going to be a lot of people out there, both in the States and in the UK, who disagree with me on this one and prefer this sort of more modern look. What I really like is the fact they haven't felt the need to go completely overboard up the rest of the rod. Other than this little bit down here, actually, again, this is a reasonably subtle rod. In terms of build quality going further up the rod, it's sort of what you'd expect from a mid-range rod that's been made offshore. The guides seem absolutely fine. They are very, very slim at the top. I don't mind that particularly. The whippings are a little bit globby, you know, as I say, they're the sort of finishy bits you're expecting from a rod at this price point. It's neat, it's tidy, there's nothing sticking out, there's nothing bubbly or wobbly. It's just not that real fancy stuff that you expect when you're talking about hardies and sages and stuff like that. You shouldn't really be expecting that because this is a rod at less than half the price of those rods. What is most important about the Wing Streamflex though is how it fishes. And as I say, I've spent a lot of time casting with this rod now. I've used a few different lines. I used the Scientific Angler's GPX. I always could get confused with the GPX or the MPX. It's half a line size heavier. I'll put it on the screen here somewhere. I've used this with the Airflow Universal Taper in a 4-weight. Well, I had on old Farlow's 4-weight I've used this with. I've used this with a Witchwood 4-weight, so I've used quite a lot of different lines with this. In truth, it's cast everything pretty well. The description that Greys give of medium fast, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, and I haven't got the facilities here to kind of, in data terms, expand on that. I can only really give you my experience. I thought this was slightly stiffer than the Streamflexes of yore. I thought this just maybe had a little bit more in it than the previous Streamflex models. Now don't get me wrong, it's been a little while since I've cast one of the old 9-foot 4-weight Streamflexes, but I did fish one of those for quite a long time actually, so again, a bit of muscle memory on that. I thought this was maybe just a touch more powerful than those. You know, I'm not talking super fast, I'm not talking super powerful here. They were quite delicate rods back in the day. But again, I wonder if there's just a slight sign here this is being produced both for the American and the UK market, that the Hardy Greys have perhaps just beefed this up slightly. Of all the lines, I thought it probably cast the Airflow Universal Taper the best. There wasn't a lot between that and the Scientific Angler's line actually, but the Airflow line just seemed to match this really nicely. That Powerlux material is definitely working hard. There's no massive counterflex here, there's no big wobbly stuff. Both short and mid-range roll casts absolutely fine. I've done some quite long-range casting with this thing. There is a fairly narrow sweet spot on this rod, I think, perhaps compared to something slightly more delicate in action, but it's not inaccessible. You know, it takes you half a dozen casts to sort of find where you are with it. And once you have found where you are with it, it's a bit of a gun at times. Actually, this could do a bit more than maybe the old original Streamflex could. I'd say it was at its best at maybe the kind of 35 to 55 feet stuff. The sort of ranges where most people are spending their time fishing, and when I give these measurements, I am including the leader. So if you're fishing a 10-foot leader, 25 feet of fly line out, I actually thought this had enough there for you to be able to find where you were with it. At its absolute best, that kind of 50 foot, 10 feet of leader, 40 foot of fly line, I thought it was a really nice rod for casting those ranges. So if you're sort of Middle Usk, Annan, Middle Derwent in Derbyshire, stuff like that, I think this is going to be a really nice rod for you guys. It's certainly not a distance casting blasting machine, and 9-foot 4-weight shouldn't really be that. It's going to have to be a really specific action, and certainly if you've got Streamflex written on the rod, I don't think you're expecting it to be a blasting rod. There was only really one time where I felt like I pushed this rod too hard, and it was actually I went out chub fishing on the first day of the course season, and at one point I was throwing the overweighted 4-weight line from Scientific Anglers. Had about 10 feet of leader down to a whacking great indicator clink hammer, and then about 5 feet of tippet down to quite a heavy mayfly nymph. And to be honest, that was too much for it. That's going to be too much for most 9-foot 4-weights. It just couldn't quite deal with it as well as it wanted to. I was overloading it, fishing quite a long distance. That's the only time where I've genuinely felt like this rod wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. And to be quite honest, looking back, I should probably have taken a 5 or a 6 weight on that session because it would have given me a bit more scope. I was just enjoying fishing this thing so much that I just kept using it. In terms of playing fish, it's got a nice delicate action. I've caught trout, grayling, chub, what else have I caught with it? A couple of dace. Caught all sorts of stuff on this thing, and actually I can't remember any particularly disappointing hook pulls or anything like that. I can't remember a time where I really thought like the rod properly locked up. Caught some quite big fish, caught some quite small fish. It's got a nice delicate fish playing action. Again, it's the sort of action you'd expect from a Streamflex. Again, just a little bit more powerful than the original Streamflexes, but not much more. It's the sort of thing you're expecting, I think, when you pick up a rod like this. It always felt like it was tracking pretty true. I felt like it was quite accurate, as I say, particularly that sort of mid-range. Anything up to about 50 feet, I sort of felt like if I pointed it in the right direction, the rod would follow it. It always did. In truth, in terms of casting performance, as I say, there's a fairly narrow sort of sweet spot with it, but it's not inaccessible. You can find it pretty quickly, and once you're there, you pretty much do whatever you want with this thing, both roll casting and overhead casting. It's maybe not the most cultured 9'4" weight I've ever cast in truth. It's perhaps not quite giving you as much feedback as you'd like at some points, particularly at the shorter range stuff. As I say, I think by virtue of the fact that it feels like it's been stiffened up slightly, that maybe you're not quite getting the close range feedback that perhaps you'd hope for from the rod that's called Streamflex. Not unpleasant, certainly not unusable, but again, perhaps not quite that close range feel that perhaps I'd got used to with previous models. In terms of warranty with the Wing Streamflex, it looks pretty straightforward. I just checked on the Greys website for £32.50. It looks like you can send a broken section off and get a new one sent back to your door. That seems pretty reasonable. At £32.50, you can't complain too much of that. If you break one in the car door for 30 quid, you're back fishing, so no issues there at all. So on the subject of money, at some point we've got to talk about the cost of the 9'4" weight Greys Wing Streamflex. So currently in the UK, these retail at £359.99, which puts them right in the middle of the market and into a very, very congested marketplace. I can think of half a dozen maybe competitors' rods that are all sound kind of 350 to 400 quid. For your angler who's spending £359 on a rod, this probably isn't a first rod, which means that that sort of slightly narrower sweet spot is absolutely fine. I think that person might possibly be hoping for slightly better cork than they're making, but in terms of the rest of the rod, in terms of the functionality of the reel seat, quality and durability of the blank, in terms of the warranty service, that doesn't seem like bad money to me at all. I've got a feeling whoever buys this rod for 359 quid is actually getting a pretty good piece of kit, so I've absolutely no hesitation at all in saying if you're looking for a new 9'4" weight, you're on the market. Obviously if you're spending that money, you're going to try a few, or you really ought to. Definitely put the Greys Streamflex 9'4" weight, Greys Wing Streamflex, I still haven't got this, Greys Wing Streamflex 9'4" weight on your list of rods to cast. It is definitely going to be right in there. Folks, thank you very much for watching this review, really appreciate it. As ever, please do let us know if you've got a Wing Streamflex, if you're using any of the current Greys Wing Streamflex fly rods. Get in that comment section, let us know how you're getting on with it, let us know your own experiences. If you're looking for a 9'4" weight, and this has sort of got you thinking, again, get in the comment section, ask us any questions you want to. Give me your opinions on the looks, give me your opinion on the casting actions, all the stuff that Greys are saying. Really like hearing what you guys have got to say in the comment section, so get it done. I'm going to wrap this one up now. Thank you very much for watching the review, really appreciate it. IB and I are going to see you again for some fishing. Well, hopefully we're going to see you for some fishing. It's just started raining again. Some fishing, some reviews and some stuff very, very soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.